All right, everyone. Netanyahu has been indicted on fraud and bribery charges as well as breach of the public trust, which I guess comes along with bribery and fraud. He's probably guilty. I mean, let's face it, he's been investigated before, and there have always been murmurings about his spending habits and embezzlement and stuff like that. Like he and his wife live a fairly lavish lifestyle incommensurate with the money they supposedly get, so people put two and two together and they just use common sense. That being said, of course, he has to have his day in court, but this is a step beyond, like, over the last few years, what Netanyahu's been drawn into. Like, people have been talking about fraud for a while, but he was never indicted before. Now, finally, he has been, and he's calling it a coup. That's definitely the last major word of this decade. Coup. You've got it. Evo Morales in Bolivia calls what happened to him a coup. The Chilean government murmurs about a coup. Maduro murmurs about a coup. Trump fans talk about a coup. Hong Kong protests are a coup. Iran is a coup. Everything's a coup. Now, anytime that government switches over, it's a coup d'etat by whatever group's not in power at the time. Now, of course, this is bullshit. In some cases, yeah, a coup might apply. In most cases, it's a popular uprising or an armed insurrection by a military or something. It doesn't necessitate that it become a coup. In some cases, it's just the transfer of government. In Netanyahu's case, the allegation is that he's been squirreling away money illegally and then needs to go. Will he actually be forced out? Therein lies the rub, because the fact is that Netanyahu's not very popular anymore, but he's still more popular than the alternatives, or so it seems. But didn't they just fail to form a coalition government in the nation of Israel? So he might hold on to his PM position. It's going to be difficult to take, the highest ranking man in the land and force him to the side without some degree of instability, I would think. I think the worst possible scenario is some crazy group gets in charge of Israel and has all those U.S. manufactured nukes that they managed to grab and, deploys them or does crazy things with nuclear weapons. You do realize that Israel has a nuclear stockpile on the order of what Pakistan has, and grabbed all the nuclear material and triggers, by the way, from the U.S. under the table. And the Pentagon had a report about this in the 80s that we only got declassified 2 years ago. They still don't even acknowledge that they have nuclear weapons. By the way, all aid to Israel from the U.S., especially of a military nature, is technically against U.S. law. Technically, under existing U.S. law, any non-signee of the NPT with nuclear weapons can't get U.S. aid. Well, they've found a workaround. They just loan them money and then they immediately forgive the loan. So it's not a grant. We're not giving them money. We're giving them a loan. That's allowed. Oh, we forgive it the next day. It's interesting how that works. Congress, by the way, doesn't like to talk about this too much. We shouldn't be giving any aid to nuclear powers anyway. Dude, they're stable enough. They can deal with their own shit. Doesn't make any sense. Oh my God, Iran might be an existential threat to Israel. Yes, Iran wants to be eradicated off the face of the earth by 100 nuclear missiles. I'm sure they'll get ready to invade tomorrow, especially when they're dealing with their own instability right now over raising the gas prices. I think those protests are still burning Tehran to the ground at the moment. So we'll see if Netanyahu goes. My own summation of Israeli politics is this. You've got Dumb and Dumber trying to lead the country. Netanyahu, dumb, kind of nationalistic dude, but he makes imperialistic gestures to win votes. He also makes conciliatory gestures to win votes. He's an opportunist. He's one of those kind of people. He's like a Clinton. So he's corrupt. He probably is bribing people and committing fraud. He probably embezzled millions of whatever currency is used there. Shekels, I think, are literally the currency. He's probably embezzled lots and lots of shekels, lots and lots of dollars or rubles or whatever he denominates his embezzlement in. That being said, what's the alternative? It's a liberal party that's sort of similar, but they just want higher taxes and more welfare. There's no real difference, I think, in the foreign policy platform, which is basically we will slowly eradicate these Palestinians because this is our land. And sort of going back, like I think back in the 70s, one of their leaders, wasn't it Sharon? I think he said, well, we better lash out now because every hill that we hold will be part of the partition. And that was before the war ended. And so they tried to occupy every piece of high ground they could around the country in order to make sure that, when the land was partitioned by foreign forces, they would have as much as possible. Then you've got politicians here in the U.S., well, over in the U.S. because I'm in Amsterdam at the moment. They can't wrap their heads around how to solve the problem. Even Trump failed. Trump went in very early. One of Trump's first things in office was he tried to broker a deal between Israel and Palestine. He's still kind of sort of trying that now by recognizing Israel's sovereignty over these settlements, and the settlements aren't illegal and stuff. He's hoping to put pressure on the Palestinian Authority to come back to the table. He feels like that's going to be fruitful. I disagree with him. I don't think it'll work. He should focus on North Korea. And that's exactly what he did when he realized how shitty the situation was. Netanyahu's an interesting character because on the one hand, he sort of pretends to be like a Trumpite, sort of strokes Trump's ego to try to get along with him. But then he's constantly like at odds with him. Like Trump comes out and says, oh, Netanyahu might be done for, and he's made some mistakes and stuff. It was funny because the last time that a U.S. president did this, it was actually Obama, and the Republicans cried foul. They've done no such thing with Trump. They don't dare to. It's hilarious to watch. Here's the thing. I've consistently said this. I have no problem with Israeli nationalism. It's the imperialism that I have a problem with. And some people, by the way, think that this is a fence-sitting approach. No. It's an ideological approach. Israel bullies around neighboring countries unduly. It bombs Syrian facilities that were used for energy. It's attacked Iranian facilities. Under normal circumstances, if Israel didn't have nukes, there would have been a retaliation involved, and under the U.S. umbrella. It's constantly attempting to force Palestinians out of their homes, including lawful residents within Israel itself who happen to be non-Jewish, in order to create an ethno-state in the most literal sense. But the problem is it goes outside of its borders because it's not interested in staying inside of its borders. That imperialistic aspect we have to denounce. The nationalistic aspect of saying, well, we're going to control who comes into the country. We have a language. We have a certain religion that we favor. Who cares? If you don't like it, you can always leave. That's not a problem, especially since Israel, economically speaking, is not a major presence in the world. It's a major military player within its region, but it's still subjugated on a world stage. The disproportionate wealth and power Israel wields is largely due to the United States mollycoddling the nation of Israel. You think Netanyahu generated that wealth? You think Netanyahu's the one that made the military there powerful? The U.S. takes its last-gen equipment and pumps Israel full of steroids on a constant basis. We've been doing this to the Saudis as well, in order to maintain supremacy in the region to keep the oil flowing for world trade reasons. There's a part of me that says, well, that's fine, except that it keeps causing lots of deaths, and diplomatically it makes mess after mess for the American government. At some point, we've got to get to a zero-sum point at which it's more of a detriment than it is a benefit. At some point, just for economic reasons, you got to let up. What the hell are the Russians going to do? They're gonna bomb Tel Aviv. They're gonna march into Jerusalem. It'd be fucking hilarious if they tried. The Israelis have, according to the last estimate, they have over 100 fully modern nuclear weapon systems, which are long-range missile capabilities as well. They can hit Moscow. They can hit St. Petersburg and Tehran with missiles on the multi-megaton order. I don't think the Russians want to waste their time because there's no point to it. China doesn't give a shit. They're too busy colonizing Somalia and Ethiopia right now. So, the warmongering and sort of perpetually fear-mongering speech that you get from someone like Netanyahu on the more right-wing side of Israeli politics is unhelpful, number one, and unrealistic, number two. It's strictly opportunistic. But the alternative, the so-called liberal party that opposes him, they're not really liberal. They just want more taxes. They're socialistic in the fiscal sense. Otherwise, they basically sound the same as Netanyahu. Oh yeah, the settlements will be ours. Oh yeah, fuck Hamas. Bomb our enemies. Okay, how is that any different? I don't see how anything possibly fucking changes. The only thing that would change is the U.S. might get more distanced under a Trump administration from Israel if a left-wing regime takes over. You might as well just deal with the fraudster that you've already got in office, to tell the truth from a fiscal standpoint. That's about all. Peace out.